Singapore agrees to start a green lane with Germany despite rising COVID-19 infection rates there.
In their final debate, Donald Trump and Joe Biden clash over key issues: economy, coronavirus, and race.
I think I have great relationships with all people. I am the least racist person in this room.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history.
Will Malaysia declare an economic emergency? Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin has an audience with the King after holding a special cabinet meeting today.
Hello, you're welcome to The Big Story, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. I'm Olivia Quay.
I'm Haryanto Diman. You can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode.
Well, let's begin with the latest COVID-19 figures in Singapore. 10 new cases were confirmed today and none in the community for the 5th straight day.
All of today's cases were imported and had been placed on stay-home notices when they arrived here. More details will be released tonight.
Also in the local headlines, Singapore and Germany have agreed on a reciprocal green lane only for business and official travel. Dates for the opening and other operational details like how to apply will be announced in time. But what we do know is that residents in Germany and Singapore are eligible to apply. They must abide by the COVID-19 prevention and public health measures agreed upon by both countries. This agreement comes as Germany today reported more than 11,000 new infections.
Los Amigos, a Mexican restaurant in Circular Road, was ordered to close its premises for 20 days starting Wednesday. This after breaching COVID-19 safe management measures multiple times. The Urban Redevelopment Authority told the Straits Times today that this is the longest closure it has issued to an F&B outlet so far. This is the second time Los Amigos has been taken to task. On October 10th, URA officers saw a gathering of 8 people, as well as different groups of customers standing less than 1 meter apart from one another.
Meanwhile, another F&B outlet, Kampai 789, was fined $2,000 for not ensuring that customers from different groups kept a meter apart from one another. The eatery in Robertson Walk was previously fined $1,000 during the circuit breaker period when staff were found not to be wearing masks properly. 2 other F&B outlets, Forum Seafood Village Restaurant in Boat Quay and Siang Signature in Liang Xia Street, were each fined $1,000 for admitting groups of more than 5 people. Separately, 13 people were also fined $300 each for gathering in groups of more than 5 in the Boat Quay area.
Next Friday, for the first time since the pandemic, Singapore will stage a live sporting event with fans. 250 spectators will be allowed inside the Singapore Indoor Stadium for One Championship's Fight Night. In line with the government's new pilot scheme, an antigen rapid test for COVID-19 will be used at the event, and attendees will only be admitted if they get a negative result.
And in response to reports that Pope Francis endorsed same-sex civil unions in a documentary, the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Singapore said the Catholic Church's stance on marriage remains unchanged. The Catholic Church of Singapore said any comment made by Pope Francis that has been recorded in a documentary is not considered or admissible as an official papal teaching. The Catholic Church teaches that homosexuals should be treated with dignity, but it is opposed to gay marriage.
Now, across the causeway, Malaysia's cabinet held a special meeting this morning. Government leaders discussing proposals to ensure that the upcoming budget session in Parliament doesn't result in snap elections amid a COVID-19 resurgence.
Sources told our Malaysia Bureau Chief Shannon Teo that an economic emergency could also be declared so that government spending to curb COVID-19 is not jeopardized by an increasingly unstable political atmosphere. Well, Shannon joins us now all the way from Kuala Lumpur. Shannon, what were some of the most salient points that emerged from this morning's meeting? We also understand that Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin is due to meet the King this evening.
Yeah, that's right. I think they might have discussed many different issues, but top of the agenda obviously was this proposal to declare an emergency. Now, the stated reason obviously is the ongoing coronavirus situation. Malaysia has hit over 800 cases per day in the past couple of weeks, several days, we've seen more than 800 cases. You compare this to early June, where the maximum number was about 200 plus, right? So it's a huge increase. But it's coming just a couple of weeks before the budget 2021 is supposed to be tabled. And what we've seen in the past month, it's a lot of political instability after opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim claimed that he had the majority and not Muhyiddin Yassin. We all know that Muhyiddin's Perikatan Nasional government has a very slim majority in parliament, only 113 out of 222 MPs. So there has been concern that a few rebels might pull out their support for his government. This is especially after UMNO President Zahid Hamidi a few weeks ago mentioned that there were quote-unquote many MPs in UMNO who might want to support Anwar. So it's part of this uncertainty that's maybe triggered this move to hold the emergency.
Shannon, you also reported that the special cabinet meeting was attended by Armed Forces Chief and Attorney General. Why were these parties there?
Well, if you want to hold an emergency, if you want to proclaim an emergency, then it involves the security forces, and there's also the legal ramifications involved. The Attorney General is probably there to advise on what can or cannot be done in an emergency. Now, if the emergency is largely because of the political situation, the question right now is whether Parliament will continue to sit or if the government has the power to suspend Parliament. And if Parliament is suspended, then how do you approve a budget for 2021? The government cannot operate if it has not approved any money to be spent. One narrative, one line of thinking is that because the government and the palace can bring to law any rulings or regulations when an emergency is in force, then they can also pass by executive order spending for 2021. So that's one way to get around the vote for the budget and to ensure that the Muhyiddin government does not fall.
Right. Well, let's get an update on opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim. Now, Shannon, the last time we spoke, Mr. Anwar met the king to present documents that allegedly, I beg your pardon, prove that he has the majority support in parliament. So what's the latest on that matter?
Well, he did actually go to the Agong, to the king, on October 13 to stake his claim. But we know that the Agong said that, well, I got a bunch of letters, but none of it actually lists down exactly who are the MPs that back him. Now, it's been discovered now with the passage of time that what Anwar had was a letter from Zahid Hamidi, the UMNO president, as well as Najib Razak, the former premier, pledging the support of UMNO as a party to Anwar Ibrahim. However, there was no proof or evidence that it involved all 39 UMNO MPs. And this letter, in fact, caused a lot of consternation amongst UMNO's allies in the Muhyiddin government. The Parti Islam Malaysia, for example, questioned why UMNO would work with Anwar because it would entail working with the Democratic Action Party. Now, this UMNO and PAS have both said that the Democratic Action Party, DAP, has been responsible for an alleged agenda to undermine Malay Muslim interests in the country. So they consider this a huge betrayal. And Zahid was forced to backtrack on threats to leave the Perikatan Nasional government. So that leaves Anwar's, a counter coup bid, as it were, pretty much dead for now. So the next opportunity to challenge the Muhyiddin government would have been this budget. It's supposed to happen next month. Now, to be clear, Parliament has not been suspended yet. Emergency has not been declared yet. None of this has happened. The Prime Minister, we understand, is in the meeting with the Agong right now, and we are standing by to see if he will confirm that basically that the cabinet decision has been assented to by the Agong.
Well, thank you so much, Shannon, for shedding light on this matter. Always a pleasure to speak with you. That was Malaysia Bureau Chief Shannon Teo on the latest across the causeway.
Well, politics from the other side of the world. After the chaos of the first U.S. presidential debate, this morning's showdown between Donald Trump and Joe Biden was much more focused and subdued.
Thanks to the use of a mute button and better moderation, both candidates were more coherent on policy issues and their visions for America. On the subject of the COVID-19 pandemic, they clashed over the reopening of the economy and society.
We have to open our country. We're not going to have a country. You can't do this. We can't keep this country closed. This is a massive country with a massive economy. People are losing their jobs. They're committing suicide. There's depression, alcohol, drugs at a level that nobody's ever seen before.
What I would say is I'm going to shut down the virus, not the country. It's his ineptitude that caused the country to have to shut down in large part. Why businesses have gone under, why schools are closed, why so many people have lost their living, and why they're concerned.
On the topic of race and the Black Lives Matter movement, the candidates pointed fingers at each other, arguing that the other man is racist.
Mr. Trump blasting his rival's efforts on criminal justice reform, while Mr. Biden called out the president's refusal to condemn white supremacists.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire, every single one.
I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark, but I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
Foreign editor Bhagya Sri Garika is back. Hi Bhagya. Restrained, civilized, more focused. Now those words have been used to describe this debate. Let's focus on each candidate and how they fared compared to the first debate. Let's start with Mr. Trump. How did he do?
Oh, I think Trump this time was almost like a model debater. I think the conditions for this debate helped. Basically, you could see that he did not interrupt, which was a big objection to the way he conducted himself in the last debate. He waited his turn to speak. And I think he also spoke to the topic. So he answered questions directly, for the most part anyway. The last time, if you remember, in the first debate in September, end of September, basically you saw the two of them use some, language for each other. Trump called Biden not so smart, and you had Biden saying, "Shut up, man," to Trump. So compared to all that, like you say, it was a very civil performance and substantive.
Right, so an improvement from Donald Trump. Now let's move on to the Democratic candidate. There were several times when Mr. Biden spoke directly to the camera amid the melee in an attempt to put his points across directly to the voters. So Bhagya, how did he perform in terms of, how he stayed on message while trying to counter attacks from Mr. Trump?
Oh, I think Biden also had a very good night. So in the case of Biden, I think firstly, he stayed unruffled. There were some provocations from Mr. Trump. For instance, when he alleged Biden's family members, his son Hunter Biden, of some corrupt dealings, Biden stayed cool. He denied the allegations, but he did not counterattack, for instance, on Mr. Trump's relatives, for instance. The other thing I noted is that Biden was pretty good with his messaging. So on coronavirus, he made the charge that Trump could not be trusted to deal with it. So I think his points came across. He was civil, he was pleasant. Some people thought he looked a bit tired at times, but this is a 90-minute affair. And they're both in their 70s. So I think there's that.
Well, Bhagya, that said, personal jabs were still exchanged, but overall, things were less chaotic than the first debate, thanks in part to the night's moderator, NBC's Kristen Welker, as well as the mute button. Now, how effective were these two factors in keeping the debate proceedings in order?
Oh, I think the mute button was possibly a stroke of genius. It was the silent hero or the star of the night. The rules basically allowed the candidate who was asked the question to address it while the opponent stayed quiet, as in his mic was probably not on. So he had these uninterrupted 2 minutes to speak, after which you saw them, trading, charges or accusations against each other, which is fine. It was in the spirit of the debate. But that 2 minutes that they got uninterrupted, I think was appreciated by the audience, and definitely, I think, even by the two candidates themselves. So mute button helped. The moderator, right? So she was from NBC, Kristen Welker, and she was very good. I think there were a lot of tweeting on her performance. that she was very controlled. She could hold the two of them to the questions. She was pleasant too. She had a good demeanor. And I think one of the best compliments for her actually came from Chris Wallace, who moderated the last debate and, sort of said he had a mess on his hands. And he said so Chris Wallace said he was jealous of her, jealous of this moderator because she managed to control the conversation too so well. And she was able to get good replies from both the candidates.
Right. Well, let's move on to the issues that were discussed in the debate. What were some of them that proved to be the most contentious, you think?
I think the first topic, which is coronavirus, I think that is at the top of the mind for many American voters. And of the 1.5 hour debate, you probably had 20-25 minutes to this topic alone. And the contentious part there, I think, was Mr. Trump saying the vaccine was ready and would be delivered within weeks. We've heard the health experts say otherwise. So that's a bit controversial. And then you have Biden saying, Trump could not be trusted to handle this crisis. This has led to the death of at least 220,000 Americans. And according to projections that Biden quoted, it could be 200,000 more deaths by the time this year's over. So, a serious charge there. The other one, I think that probably caught the attention of our viewers here in Asia and Singapore, was the bit about North Korea. So on North Korea, Biden said Trump was cozying up to dictators. And, his meeting with Kim Jong-un, the first one which took place here, the first meeting by an American president with a North Korean leader here in Singapore, the first meeting. And he said, it shouldn't have happened. Whereas Trump's point was that, this actually probably led to prevention of a war, which would have led to thousands of lives being lost. And that it's always a good idea to have an open line to communicate with leaders. So, well, it's up to you to believe either of these. But, I think that certainly got some attention here in Asia.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Bhagya. We've been speaking to foreign editor at the Straits Times, Bhagya Srigareka. The Straits Times has several stories on the debate, which you can check out at straitstimes.com.
Now on to other global headlines. Europe's COVID-19 cases more than doubled in 10 days, crossing 200,000 daily infections for the first time yesterday. This comes as many southern European countries reported their highest single-day cases this week. According to a Reuters tally, the region has so far reported about 7.8 million total cases and about 247,000 deaths, and is now reporting more daily cases than India, Brazil and the US combined.
Meanwhile, things are looking up for Australia as local cases slowed to single digits. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said today that the country will slightly lift the cap on the number of citizens and permanent residents allowed to return each week by 290. The increase comes amid heightened pressure on the government to help some 26,000 Australians who registered their intention to return home.
The US Food and Drug Administration approved antiviral drug remdesivir for treating hospitalized COVID-19 patients. This makes it the first and only drug approved for the disease in the US. Remdesivir has become the standard of care for patients hospitalized with severe COVID-19, even though it has not been shown to improve survival. The drug also has not been proven to significantly help moderately ill patients, and many doctors remain wary of using it in patients with less severe illness.
Well, those are our top stories for today. For more news and videos, visit straitstimes.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below.
Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman with Olivia Kwe. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you on Monday on The Big Story.